The golden sun was setting over Cabo San Lucas as Selena Gomez posed for another Instagram shot. The Mrs. Levin balloons floating behind her like colorful promises of her future. Her white crochet cover-up caught the breeze perfectly, and her smile seemed radiant as her closest friends cheered from behind the camera. But Nicola Rodriguez, her longtime friend and makeup artist, noticed something that made her stomach drop. Selena's phone was buzzing nonstop, and every time she glanced at it, that perfect smile flickered for just a moment. "Babe, one more shot by the ocean," called out her friend Sarah, but Selena was already reaching for her phone again. The notification sound had become a constant soundtrack to what should have been the most carefree weekend of her life. Nicola watched as Selena's face went from pure joy to something that looked almost worried. The bachelorette party had been planned for months. Everything was perfect: the villa overlooking the sea, the mariachi band that serenaded them during dinner, even the matching white sweatsuits that made them look like a girl gang from a music video. Selena had been so excited about this trip, constantly talking about how she needed this time with her girls before everything changed. But now, as the second day unfolded, something felt off. "Sel, you good?" Nicola asked quietly as they lounged by the infinity pool. The other girls were inside getting ready for their sunset boat ride, but Selena had stayed outside, phone in hand, typing furiously. "Yeah, totally fine," Selena replied, but her voice had that tight quality it got when she was anything but fine. She locked her phone screen quickly, but not before Nicola caught a glimpse of Benny's name at the top of a very long text thread. Wait a minute. Wasn't Benny supposed to be living it up in Vegas with his boys? Nicola remembered seeing his Instagram stories from Resorts World, the fancy dinners, the spa treatments, even that ridiculous video of him eating caviar like it was candy. He looked like he was having the time of his life. So why was he blowing up Selena's phone during her bachelorette weekend? As the afternoon wore on, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every few minutes, Selena's phone would light up. Every time it did, she'd excuse herself to go to the bathroom, to grab a drink, to check on something real quick. The other girls were too caught up in the champagne and the celebration to notice, but Nicola had known Selena for years. She recognized the signs of stress hiding behind that megawatt smile. During their boat ride at sunset, while everyone else was taking selfies and singing along to the playlist they'd made specifically for this trip, Selena sat at the back of the boat, phone pressed to her ear. The music was loud enough that no one could hear what she was saying, but Nicola could see her free hand gesturing in that way it did when she was trying to explain something important to someone who wasn't getting it. That night, as they watched Wedding Crashers on the beach, a tradition they'd started years ago during girls' trips, Selena laughed at all the right moments, but Nicola could see her thumbs scrolling through messages during the quiet scenes. The blue light from her screen reflected off her face in the darkness, and for a split second, Selena looked completely exhausted. But here's where things got really interesting. The next morning, while everyone else was sleeping off the previous night's margaritas, Nicola woke up early and found Selena on the villa's terrace, still in her pajamas, having what looked like a very intense FaceTime call. She was speaking in hushed tones, but the wind carried fragments of the conversation. "I know you said we should wait, but people are already asking. The venue is booked. Benny, we can't just... I feel like I'm planning this whole thing by myself." Nicola's heart sank. This wasn't what a bride-to-be should be dealing with during her bachelorette party. This was supposed to be about celebration, about the joy of commitment, about looking forward to forever with the person you love. Instead, Selena sounded like she was negotiating a business deal. When Selena finally noticed Nicola standing there, she quickly ended the call. "Oh, hey, I was just... Benny wanted to see the sunrise here. You know how he is about beautiful views." But Nicola wasn't buying it. She'd heard enough to know this wasn't about sharing scenic moments. This was about something much deeper, much more complicated. "Selena," Nicola said gently, sitting down next to her friend. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" For a moment, Selena's carefully constructed facade cracked. Her shoulders sagged, and she looked out at the ocean with an expression that was pure vulnerability. "Do you ever feel like you're living your life for everyone else except yourself?" The question hung in the air like morning mist. Nicola waited, knowing that Selena needed space to find her words. Benny wants to push back the wedding, Selena finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He says we're both too busy, that we should wait until after his album drops and after I finish the next season of Only Murders. He thinks we're rushing into it. Hold up. If you're watching this and you've ever been in a situation where you felt caught between love and timing, make sure to hit that like button because this story is about to get even more real. And don't forget to subscribe because we're diving deep into what really happened during that phone call. But we announced our engagement, Selena continued, her eyes filling with tears. Everyone knows. Taylor's already planning to be the flower girl. My family's making arrangements. And honestly, I don't want to wait. I waited my whole life to feel this sure about someone. Nicola felt her heart breaking for her friend. What did you tell him? I told him I need to think about it. But Nick, what's there to think about? Either you want to marry someone or you don't, right? Either you're ready to build a life together or you're not. Selena's voice was getting stronger, more certain. I spent so many years in relationships where I was always waiting for the other person to be ready, to be sure, to choose me completely. I thought Benny was different. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Here was Selena, surrounded by Mrs. Levin balloons and bride-to-be sashes, questioning whether the man she was about to marry was even ready for marriage. Maybe just his cold feet, Nicholas suggested, though she could hear the doubt in her own voice. That's what he says. But Nick, we've been together for over a year. We've talked about this. We made plans. And now, 3 weeks before I need to finalize everything with the venue, he wants to pump the brakes. Selena stood up, pacing to the edge of the terrace. Sometimes I wonder if he proposed because he thought it was what I wanted to hear, not because it was what he wanted to do. This was the Selena that the world rarely got to see. Not the polished pop star or the confident actress, but the woman who had been hurt before, who had learned to question love even when it felt real. You know what the worst part is? Selena continued. I'm sitting here in paradise, wearing a bride-to-be veil, and instead of feeling excited about my future, I'm wondering if I'm about to make the same mistake I've made before, loving someone more than they love me. As if on cue, her phone buzzed again. This time, instead of rushing to answer it, Selena just stared at the screen. He's calling again, probably to tell me about some new project that's going to conflict with our honeymoon dates. Don't answer it, Nicholas said firmly. Not right now. This is your weekend. This is your time to figure out what you want. But Selena was already shaking her head. That's just it, Nick. I know what I want. I want to marry him. I want to build a life with him. I want to wake up next to him every day and create music together and maybe have kids someday. But I want him to want those things too, not just because they sound nice in theory. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of their friends waking up inside the villa, voices calling out about breakfast and boat plans. Selena quickly wiped her eyes and plastered that famous smile back on. Promise me you won't say anything to the girls? She asked. I don't want to ruin their trip. Nicola nodded, though every instinct told her that Selena was making a mistake by carrying this burden alone. The rest of the day played out like a performance. Selena posed for pictures, laughed at jokes, participated in every activity with enthusiasm that would have fooled anyone who didn't know her well. But Nicholas saw the moments in between. The way Selena's hand trembled slightly when she held her phone, the way she stared off into the distance during conversations, the way she kept touching her engagement ring like she was testing whether it still felt right. That evening, during their final dinner at a restaurant overlooking the harbor, Selena's phone rang again. This time, she actually answered it. Hey, babe, she said, stepping away from the table. Yeah, we're just having dinner. What? No, I thought we agreed to talk about this when I get back. Benny, this isn't the time. When she returned to the table 5 minutes later, her face was flushed and her jaw was set in a way that meant she was fighting back tears. Everything okay? Asked Sarah, though the question was casual enough that Selena could have deflected easily. Instead, Selena set down her wine glass and looked around at the faces of her closest friends. Actually, no, everything's not okay. Now here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Don't scroll away because what Selena said next changed everything. Benny doesn't want to get married in December, she announced, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. He wants to wait, maybe indefinitely. The table went completely silent except for the sound of waves crashing against the rocks below. Sarah put down her fork. Jessica stopped mid-sip of her margarita. Even the mariachi music from the restaurant's courtyard seemed to fade into the background. "What do you mean, indefinitely?" asked Jessica, her voice carefully controlled. "He says we're both too focused on our careers right now. That marriage should come when we have more time to devote to each other. That we should enjoy being engaged for a while longer." Selena's voice was getting stronger with each word, like finally saying it out loud was giving her clarity. "But here's the thing. When is there ever going to be a perfect time? When am I ever not going to have a project? When is he ever not going to be producing someone's album?" Sarah reached across the table and took Selena's hand. "What do you want to do?" It was such a simple question, but Selena looked like no one had asked her that in weeks. "I want to marry him," she said without hesitation. "But I want to marry someone who's excited to marry me, not someone who sees it as just another item on his to-do list." "Have you told him that?" Nicola asked. "I've tried, but every conversation turns into logistics. When we'll have time for a honeymoon, how wedding planning will interfere with studio time, whether we should have a small ceremony or a big one. It's like he's treating our marriage like a business merger instead of a celebration of love." The friends exchanged glances. They all knew Selena's history with relationships, where she'd given more than she'd received. They'd watched her learn to value herself, to demand better. And now here she was, facing that same pattern with someone they'd all thought was different. "Maybe," said Sarah carefully, "this is actually a good thing. Maybe this is showing you something important about Benny that you need to know before you marry him." Selena looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, how someone handles wedding planning tells you a lot about how they'll handle marriage. If he's this stressed about committing to a date, how's he going to handle committing to everything that comes after?" It was a harsh truth, but Selena nodded slowly. "That's what I'm afraid of. That I'm going to spend my marriage feeling like I care more about us than he does." "So what are you going to do?" Nicola asked. Selena was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the lights reflecting on the water. When she spoke, her voice had a new quality to it. Not angry, not sad, but determined. "I'm going to go home and have a real conversation with him. Not about logistics or timing, but about what marriage means to him. What commitment looks like. Whether he sees me as his partner or as someone he's settling down with because it's the next logical step. And if he can't give you the answer you need." Selena touched her engagement ring again, this time with more intention. "Then I guess I'll know that I dodged a bullet. Better to find out now than 2 years into a marriage where I'm always wondering if he really wants to be there." The conversation shifted after that, becoming more supportive, more focused on what Selena deserved rather than what she was losing. Her friends reminded her of her worth, of her strength, of all the ways she'd grown since her last relationship. By the time they got back to the villa, Selena seemed lighter, more herself. That night, as they packed their bags for the morning flight, Selena made a decision. She turned off her phone. "Whatever Benny needs to say can wait until I'm ready to hear it," she told Nicola. "This weekend was supposed to be about me, about celebrating this new chapter in my life. I'm not going to let his uncertainty steal that from me." The next morning, as they waited for their car to the airport, Selena took one last look at the ocean. "You know what's funny?" she said. "I came here thinking I was celebrating my engagement. But I think what I'm actually celebrating is remembering who I am and what I deserve." "And what's that?" Nicola asked. "Someone who's as excited to marry me as I am to marry them. Someone who sees planning our wedding as the first step in building our life together, not as an inconvenience that's getting in the way of everything else." As they drove away from Cabo, Selena seemed more at peace than she had all weekend. Not because her problems were solved, but because she finally knew what questions she needed to ask. The epilogue to this story came 3 days later, when Selena finally turned her phone back on. There were 17 missed calls from Benny and a text that simply said, "We need to talk." Selena stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Yes, we do. But this time, we're going to talk about what really matters." What happened in that conversation? That's a story for another day. But what we do know is that sometimes the most important part of planning a wedding isn't choosing the flowers or the venue. It's making sure you're marrying the right person for the right reasons. If this story resonated with you, If you've ever had to choose between settling and waiting for something real, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments what you think Selena should do. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask the hard questions before you say, I do. And remember, you deserve someone who's as excited about forever as you are. Don't settle for anything less.